goes a little something like.
Hello Literates, I'm Britt Ryderly. Welcome back to Writer's Ambition. For those of you who've been hanging in since episode 1, you're a real one. And for those of you who are just finding my humble channel, welcome. We hope you stay a while. So, on the first Tuesday after Black History Month, I just wanted to take a minute to encourage us all to stay leaned in. Black History Month is the shortest month of the year. That shade will forever be. But if COVID has taught us anything, if 2020 has taught us anything, is that we can't afford to take our eyes off of not Black history, but Black life and death in America. So Black History Month is over. It's Women's Month. Next month is National Poetry Month, and all these different months have a theme, and that's great. But you don't need a prompt to continue to engage Black subjectivity in any way. So this video is going to be not a middle finger, because I would never do something so worldly and non-Christian, but to push back against trying to confine Black history into a month and encourage us all to continue to engage it throughout the year. And I just have a few outgoing Black History Month recommendations. Now, the caveat for this is I was thinking about capacity and just the capaciousness of Blackness, that it can't be put into one month, that it is so very many things. And what really struck me is how much the genre of fantasy and science fiction really theorize upon Blackness and just show us how big it is. And so I'm going to give you some science fiction and fantasy recs. Now, I have plenty of those on my channel, so I'm only giving you like 3 or 4 here. If you want a whole list, my Blackathon TBR video, I do give you like 4 or so more. And then also, if you want to like really get into Black SFF, Njeri, her booktube is Onyx pages. That is all she eats over there. Go check it out. But I'm just gonna give you a few book titles and then just some author names that will get you started, so you can just from there go and eat to your heart's content. But I'm giving you these authors' names because these are authors who theorize upon Blackness, not just talk about Black trauma, but also talk about like the journey. So yes, traumatic things happen, racialized things happen, but there are also moments of joy and Black social life, and it's as important to read those things as it is to read how to be anti-racist and all of these different things that have come in vogue in the last like 3 years to read. Those books are definitely important. Ibram Kendi's book, like all of those things are so important, but there are other ways to engage the vivaciousness, the voluptuousness of Blackness, and we should engage those ways as well year round. Okay, my first recommendation is N.K. Jemisin. Now, N.K. Jemisin, full stop, honestly. Like anything N.K. Jemisin, and you're in good hands. If you want some specifics, I would say 1000% The 100,000 Kingdoms. I think how she theorizes Blackness, particularly through Nahadoth, who's one of like the 3 original gods or whatever, like how she theorizes Blackness through him is, I mean, talk about voluptuous, really. Like it's very lush. The way that she has, like the way she structured that character to be subject to people's imagination of him, I think is hugely indicative of how Blackness goes through and is not corrupted. How Blackness can become sort of convoluted through the stereotypes of the mainstream American imagination. And that's just one character. That is just one character in the 100,000 Kingdoms. But so N.K. Jemisin, the 100,000 Kingdoms. Also very fitting, N.K. Jemisin, How Long Till Black Future Month, which is a collection of essays that sort of, a collection of essays that were posted to that, not essays, a collection of short stories, science fiction and fantasy short stories that were published in 2018. The idea for it, though, came from an essay that Jemisin wrote in 2013 about Afrofuturism. So I think after Black History Month, when we're talking about always looking at the past for Black people, which I could say something about that, but again, I won't, not right now. Looking towards the future for Black people, I think reading How Long Till Black Future Month would be a great way to inaugurate the day after the end of Black History Month, or 2 days after, I guess. Okay. So N.K. Jemisin, Any and Everything, Eat Well. Nalo Hopkinson, Any and Everything, Eat Well, really. She is a Canadian Jamaican author. And again, anything, but Brown Girl in the Ring, that's one of her earlier novels. That's 1998. And I think of Brown Girl in the Ring as a Canadian Jamaican Wings of Ebony by J.L., which you know I love. But Brown Girl in the Ring is like a Canadian Jamaican Wings of Ebony. It also has a movie called Brown Girl Interrupted, I believe. So check that out. But Brown Girl in the Ring talks about I'm saying it's a Canadian Jamaican Wings of Ebony because it deals with like real conditions of Black lives. There's a drug lord who's into some voodoo, and the protagonist has to deal with that. Like, it really not the same as if like they're basically the same book, but as far as them not using magic to escape the conditions of Black life, but deploying magic, cultural magic as well, because there's voodoo there. Using magic to confront the everyday circumstances of Black life rather than using magic to escape it. They are like in that way. So Brown Girl in the Ring by Nalo Hopkinson, definitely give it a try. The next one that I would say in the last science fiction fantasy rec I have is Daughters of Jubilation by Carly Cawthron. The cover is just beautiful, but that's not the point. This is a historical retelling, sort of. It's not a retelling, but it's set in the 1960s South. And Evie, I love that name. Evie's the protagonist. She's like a 16-year-old Black girl living in the American South, and she has this thing called jubilation, which is her family's magic, although not only her family has it, but it just goes into like life. It's the American South in the 60s, so it's not like the specter of violence is not always there. It is, and it's, Jim Crow is still sort of floating around implicitly, and so those things are still there, but that doesn't suck the joy out of it. Evie has friends. Evie has friends. We see her have her first sexual encounter. Like, you're seeing life in the midst of all of that. Like, it's not like that stops people from living. It never did, but it's just really good to see a book that talks about Black history not just be about the violence of it, but also be about how people lived in those times. And then you get some magic, and I love that the magic is called Jubilation. So check that out. Daughters of Jubilation. So those are my, what was that, like 4 SFF recs to just start you on your way as you're continuing to read Black books. And again, I'm just making it fantasy because I think fantasy just really makes it easy. Like, fantasy just profoundly studies Blackness. Not that it's the only genre that does or that can or whatever, but you got me. Okay, so that's that. If you want just some other, like, here's some authors, go through their backlist, you could also read, and just starting with like old heads, Samuel Delaney, old head, Samuel Delaney, George Schuyler, Colson Whitehead, coming a little bit forward to Octavia Butler, Tananarive Due. I've already said Nala Hopkinson and N.K. Jemisin, Tade Thompson, and Cadwell Turnbull. I don't know why I didn't see, I made a whole list and I'm just looking like don't know how to read Cadwell Turnbull. And you'll hear, I was supposed to read The Lesson by him February, but I didn't because I was like, I'm not in the mood. I was getting ready to read The Gilded Ones, which I'm reading right now, but I knew that it was heavier, and I had just read Rings of Ebony, which, though I love, was also heavy. So I started gorging romance to prepare myself to read The Gilded Ones, which, just so you know, is freaking amazing. Review of that coming last Tuesday of this month. But so I didn't end up reading The Lesson by Cadwell Turnbull. I might read that this month, but I will definitely in the next several months be reading an arc of his No Gods, No Monsters that's coming out in September. So you will hear me talk more about Cadwell Turnbull because I'm reading an arc of his and I'm going to do a review on the channel for y'all. He's a new name to me, so I'm really excited. The No Gods, No Monsters looks really good, so can't wait to do a review of that. But that is just your little outgoing Black History Month package. You're welcome. I'm going to go ahead and do my poetic presence for the month. I might do another one, but I didn't do one at all last month, so I'm gonna make sure I'm on it this month and do it now. And it is fitting that I do it in this video because it's sort of a reflection on the capacity of Blackness. And it's really, I wrote this poem like over 5 years ago at this point, but maybe it was exactly 5 years ago, but I was sort of working through some anxieties about what it was to be a Black poet and what people expect you to say in your poetry as a Black poet, what people expect you to write about. And the poem sort of starts off with me at the beginning of that anxiety, and then it ends on a note of jubilation. So I'm gonna share that with y'all. It's this month's Poetic Presence. Let's get it, let's get it. This is what I found there, an ode to Blackness. One night before bed, I prayed for a poem Black enough to save me in the belly of the well that is this country. And if this is the belly of the well, where did you actually want me to go? Where did I go wrong? I digress. I prayed for the Blackest poem to save myself with, and God sent me this vision, an out-of-body experience. And on the way back to myself, I witnessed a conversation between me and another darker being, and oh, what ebony revelations, and oh, what life she breathed into me. Forgive me, or don't, because this poem is a maze, and I am taking your stationary assets on the screen as confirmation that you would like to come with me in this poem. I attempt to find the path, the abstract, find it so I can lose it for good this time. It often goes unseen, that is its way. Winding about, virulent as the plague, painted black like anyone ever died from a shadow, like a shadow ever strangled or stole breath. I caught a glimpse of it yesterday, the path, the abstract. My grandmother, answering questions unasked, told me to be careful on my way, say that pursuit be its own maze, and the maze I want spit me out at some end as suddenly as it pleases. It's ruled that way, okay. In this poem, I am looking for sight. I am looking for its glory stolen and buried in the sun. Give it back to my mistress, the moon. She is calling for it. She bade me go, showed me the path. In fact, at least I'm beginning to suspect, and you are still coming. This will be a series of inquiries, maybe a series of assertions too, hopefully. By the end, at the end, the two of us will share a secret. Neither of us may go down the path we go. First turn. Why Do detectives shine lights in interrogations? It does not encourage the truth. People tell the truth under cover of night. When a beautiful ebon pinion hides their face and their sin, it happens so much, this secret honesty. They have begun to mistake the darkness for the sin, because it is kind enough to be confidant, mature enough to keep other folks' business out of its mouth. I'm going somewhere with this. Second twist. This maze looks like a dark alley at this bend. And right now at this PM, it seems to have teeth. Maybe by the time I finish this word, we won't be afraid anymore. We see your anxiety is wafting up to me. It will go away soon. Maybe you won't be afraid of the dark anymore. Call people dressed in her teeth. Sometimes my mistress puts on her best gown, goes out looking so fine she just has to hug herself, because she is the first celebration that always happens alone. When she hugs herself, she squeezes so tight that her crushed velvet flowing around her regal makes its own light, gives you a taste of its ancient sight, and you see visions of paths the light tends to hide. Third miss, I'm mixing words, getting slightly meta, but this isn't the time or the lighting for such truth. Wait for darkness. After the holy, maybe. See, if she returns, she's angry, says, you have tried to cut me away, me who communed with God before you. I saw your genesis. You ascribe all things evil to me, have forgotten how to speak of me independently, only know me in reference to white. You walk by sight, faithless creatures. I condemn you to weeping and gnashing of teeth in eternal light. Fourth step. She says we're going our own way, says she's covered me in her grace, so I should speak candidly, like I'm talking only to her, speak of her candidly. Mistress says, leave the abstract, spits me out of the path randomly, says, re-know me, says, don't dare use a guide as sacred as the poem for the abstract. That is not its way. You've taken it your own way. Be clear, as I've taught you to be. Speak it plainly and stand up straight with no shame. Proclaim the purpose of this poem. Stop beating around the flame and calling it a burning bush holy. The holy comes from the truth, from solid ground. Hold on to that. I'm coming back for it. My mistress is right. This poem isn't about a maze. I just found that safer than hazarding all the things that try to slip into a black poem. I was afraid. Now, I will withstand you to your face. There is no maze. Let me be clear. This poem is about us. It ain't about jail cells that hold us tighter than our mothers, or prisons more successful than black-owned businesses, or beds that can't keep their host, caskets that become beds, concrete pavement streets that become burial grounds. It's about us. Our community that stretches beyond the street cutoff or area code, our ability to find home in a shared glance after you both witnessed some foolishness your mama warned you about, because you both witnessed some foolishness you couldn't even begin to tell mama about. It's about us, about how we be an ocean, but we also be steady ground, how we be firm fluidity, how we hold this duality, how we be a church. So when we congregate, get good and convocated like we are now, don't let them shush you or your sister or your brother. Respect the fathers. Don't dare shush the mothers, because we be giving praise. We be naming all the things God loved into us and rejoicing in them, how this is holy ground, sanctified by slaves' bones, how we were built with slaves' bones. So we are sanctified temples of holy, giving ourselves to each other. This poem is about us, just like this time. It's for us to look back on how we got over, because we got more ways to go. My grandmother braided salvation down my back, told me to use it as a map, so I know we'll get there. Then let's not take this moment to strategize. Let's take it for sanity. Not to be the action plan once again, but to be the calm before we storm, to be joy, to have joy, to create, to invest in our expression, to speak ourselves, health, perform our life cyclical. This moment makes us immortal, to make this our renaissance, because we be so powerful as to rebirth ourselves. Our womb is enlarged with what we could be, so we are literally full of ourselves, near to bursting, and our time has come. Dreams finally carried to term, done waiting on this country to come to terms with us. This country, like a negligent nurse never returning to do her rounds. You know how they do us. Or worse, She's like a nurse they call angels of death. Angels of death kill their patients. Call it putting them out of their misery. Say they were going to die anyway. Say their life was painful to live and they wanted it to end. But we be that new phoenix. The phoenix that burned so long it no longer needs flames to regenerate, that can die 1,000 deaths and return to tell its children. And hasn't that been our experience? Are we not the biggest, majestic bird, all of us spread out, stretching with pride on nights like tonight when we are out in all our plumage, our glory? Don't we defy gravity with our airborne weight? Don't we multitask, being more than defiance? We are brilliance, unity incarnate, dynamism in all its perpetuity. What, I ask you, could be blacker? Nothing, I tell you, could be blacker. Believe me, I've met her.